everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy full moon. I am sitting here having pulled up my 2018 um, sidereal astrology guide because I have some important dates for y'all. So, if you are new here, I do watch the chat window. So if you have general questions, hi Cursed Runaway, hello, you can put them in the chat window. And depending on how much time we have at the end, I will take questions. What am I trying to pull up here? I am trying to pull up this window. Okay. And I've got what I need here. Oh yeah, and I need this because this full moon is like so serious. Um, let us start. Let us start by talking about the astrology. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to retweet this on Twitter. Hold on. Hold on. Mm, oh, here we go. Let me just retweet this for the people on Twitter so that they know to come. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, Reedy Reed. Um, happening now. And let's see if I have time. So let me talk in. So I forgot about this. Did I mention this? Um, I don't know if I mentioned this in the 2019 Sidereal Astrology Guide, but let's just recap here. All right, 3 degrees. 3 degrees of fixed signs has been really, really, really important over the past, I would say, 3 years or so. Um, the series of eclipses in Leo and Aquarius, which were from, I believe, 2015 until 2017, um, 3 degrees, like August 21st, 2017. I think that was at 4 degrees, but either way, right? 3 degrees. 3 degrees, 4 degrees of fixed sign. So August 21st, 2017, 4 degrees Leo, total solar eclipse, super big, 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 big deal. That created a ripple effect, past, present, and future, so that anytime we get to 3, 4 degrees of a fixed sign, we are echoing back to those moments. So then I believe it was in February of 2018, we had an eclipse at 3 degrees Aquarius, and that was the last eclipse in the Aquarius Leo sign pair. But then what happened is that last year, at the end of 2018, we had a Mercury retrograde, which actually um, meant that we had, and I got to pull this up, Mercury stationed. Oh, here we go with that freaking date again. I wish I could make up astrology, y'all. December 7th, Mercury stationed direct at 3 degrees of Scorpio. Um, let me, I've got like 5 different calendars here trying to get all of the information. Perhaps I should consolidate for next year, right? But let's see what we could do. So we have 2017, August 21st, 3 degrees Leo, eclipse 4 degrees. February of 2018, eclipse in Aquarius 3 degrees. November, December of 2018, um, Mercury. Hi, Kamal. Greetings from India. Digital Spice Box. Celeste. Hey, everybody. I see y'all. Okay, we go back to 2018, and I'm really trying to figure out, when did Mercury enter its retrograde shadow? Something happened. I think it was October 31st. Am I right? Yes. October 29th of 2018, Mercury entered its retrograde shadow at 3 degrees Scorpio, simultaneously conjoining Jupiter. This full moon is chock full of all kind of stuff that's been going on since October of 2018, November, December. I mean, this full moon is not an eclipse, but it is what I call a trigger. I need you to go back to October, November, December of 2018. What was going on in your world? What was happening? I've been talking so much about Scorpio, Jupiter and Scorpio. And this week in my weekly forecast on Twitter, I talked about this full moon in Scorpio and the sun being in Taurus, moon being in Scorpio. Number one, being representative of a culmination of some kind, a grand revealing, an aha moment that gives us a trajectory ahead for the rest of the Jupiter and Scorpio transit, which lasts until November 4th. But I also defined this whole Taurus Scorpio thing happening between the survival instinct, which is Scorpio, and the thriving instinct, which is Taurus. The survival instinct is something that possesses us. Whenever talking about water signs, which are Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, we are talking about instinct. Instinct is not conscious and it's not on purpose. It is the force of life moving through you, possessing you to maintain your embodiment of consciousness, trying to keep you alive. So when we talk about Scorpio as a survival instinct, we're not talking about sex and manipulation. This is something that is unconscious. This is something that possesses us, that actually takes over our conscious mind. Why would someone choose, for example, to have PTSD? This is their body responding to trauma, keeping their bodies alive, not on purpose, so that their body is in this hypervigilant mode of assessing threats. We have this kind of dynamic in our lives in so many ways. Some of us have truly psychologically and physically traumatic experiences that are housed in our body. And even though our mind has forgotten or attempted to move on, our bodies still remember. And at moments when we least expect it, or sometimes when we expect it, our bodies are triggered and taken back to that moment. These are the kinds of things that people are actually really dealing with. If you were a fly on the wall of my inbox or with my clients, you would understand that people are coming into awareness of the small, medium, and large ways their survival instinct has possessed their consciousness. So that even though they might will to be different, even though they might will to feel safe, to love, to trust, to belong, to connect, to thrive, which is what Taurus is about, somehow their body betrays them. So Jupiter and Scorpio has offered this opportunity for us. When Jupiter first was about to enter Scorpio, and I was tweeting a lot about it in September, the month before, I was urging people that this is the time to enter therapy. This is the time where things come up that you need guidance to help move you through. I have offered some kind of therapy, counseling, direction to my clients, but I often suggest, hey, you need to, for example, one client has been in therapy, and I told this client, you need to take control and take charge and really look at this as an opportunity to direct your healing process rather being dragged through the memories of having to revisit this. I don't care how hard your mind tries to forget, your body doesn't forget. And so as we get to this full moon, the other part of this axis of survival is illuminated for us. Wherever the sun is, today the sun enters Taurus, so wherever the sun is where we are focusing our conscious mind. This is so important to understand, that your conscious mind and focus and perception is not all that there is. Carl Jung defined it as kind of like you have a sheet of film, right? And you have a little slit opening, and there are all of these images on the film, and they go by like this, but all you can see is this little slit. So the little slit and what's visible in this one portion is indicative of what you are conscious of. And everything else is things that you are not conscious of. Things that might be recalled to you moment by moment, things that might be recalled to you because they're available in your immediate memory, or things that have been pressed and suppressed deep into the unconscious and come up when you least expect it, sabotaging your relationships, your career success, your health, your mental health and well-being. So these are the heavy things that we're dealing with, and they go back, at least in recent memory, they go back to this Mercury retrograde, Jupiter in Scorpio, October 29th, Mercury stationing direct at 3 degrees Scorpio, new moon in Scorpio. This was all in December. Early December, what was going on? How was your survival instinct kicking in gear? What events transpired and began around that time that have brought you to this conscious awareness over the past 6 months of the role that your survival instinct really does play in shaping your experience of your body and keeping you alive? And how at this moment can we give ourselves permission to thrive? Thriving occurs in relationship and in community. Survival is an individual body kind of thing, right? How do I keep my body alive? But we also are a part of an organism, right? We are a part of the human organism that is a parasite on earth, as it were. So, climate change becomes one of these things that is very important right now in relationship to Jupiter and Scorpio. And as we see in this moment, this new moon at 3 degrees Scorpio, triggering a recent Mercury retrograde, even going back to August 2017, we can look forward to later this year because that 3 degrees Scorpio happens again. If you've got your 2019 eclipse guide, that's what this is. If you've got your 2019 eclipse guide, if you've got your 2019 sidereal astrology guide in PDF or in digital format, this page here is in the back that gives you an overview of the entire year. And if you go down to, where is it? Oh, dang, way back. Here we go. October 31st. So 1 year almost to the date of Mercury entering its retrograde shadow last year at 3 degrees Scorpio. On October 31st, 2019, Mercury actually stations retrograde at, you guessed it, 3 degrees Scorpio. Even if you don't know astrology, even if you don't know what any of these things mean, you can for sure make a connection if you think about it between this present moment, this week, all of the things that have transpired over the past few weeks, and going back to December. Something has happened. Something began then. Something started. Something maybe even triggered a repetitive pattern for you. And now here you are. Let's get on with this reading. I'm so excited about this reading because this full moon is truly, hey Winter, make my volume louder. Yes. Okay. Also try turning up your volume, but I've turned myself up, so you should be able to hear me now. So when we do these lunation, a lunation is a new full moon. When we do these lunation readings, I always use my golden thread tarot deck. I've got my little table and golden cloth laid out here. And I'm going to shuffle. The card on the bottom is going to be a significator for this reading. And a significator is a card that sets the tone and context for how to read everything afterwards. So we'll look at that card on the bottom and we'll say that this is an underlying theme and focus of this full moon. And every card that we look at afterwards, it'll be 9 cards altogether. Every card that we look at afterward is going to be interpreted not only in reference to the cards around it, but back to that significator, which we find on the bottom of the deck after we shuffle and cut. Can you all hear me better? I did turn up the volume. Hopefully you can hear me better. Oops. Was that upside down card in here? I do not use reversals, so you'll never see that here. Yeah, I read more contextually, so looking at the cards around it and seeing how that changes the interpretation rather than having upside down cards. I kind of feel like, just like outer planets, reversals aren't necessarily my judge. Some people use them and swear by them, to each their own. But I think I'm kind of like a straightforward, direct kind of person. And I like for things to be methodical. Go figure. Mercury and Capricorn, don't blame me. All right, let's shuffle a couple more times, and then we are going to cut the deck to find that significator that we are looking for. One more time. Oh, wow. There we go. That's a great connection, Kamal. Also sounds like you might have some Saturn and Sagittarius things going on too. Because for many of my clients that have Sagittarius either on an angle or in connection with their career houses, have been dealing with government bureaucracy and lack of government integrity. So that sounds like that's what might be going on for you, my friend from India. All right, let's cut the deck. Oh man, we've got uh, the Nine of Swords here. I always like to, as I say every time, I always like to examine in this deck the images, because even though they're using kind of the symbolism and concepts or ideas from the traditional Rider-Waite Pamela Coleman Smith deck, they do offer new interpretations. And one of the things that is standing out to me now about this Nine of Swords cards is that you see those lines at the top. It looks like somebody's pulling back a curtain, and behind the curtain is what's really going on, right? Almost as if you were to look beyond the facade of surface and appearance, and you pull back the curtain into someone's mindset or state of being. Here comes the Nine of Swords. This is about anxiety, being anxious, having a lot on your mind, being stressed and worried. Um, the Nine of Swords can show anxiety, depression. It can show panic, your thoughts kind of running away with you. This person here has half of their body submerged in water. So here we have the duality of air and water. We have air as thoughts, ideas, your mind, and water as instinct, not feelings and emotions, but instinct, the physiological experience of emotions rather than how we interpret them or the language. So the instinct in this sense is, how is my body physiologically responding to this? And how are my interpretations of my body the source of anxiety, right? That's a hard one, because it's very hard to separate your interpretation of your body, the interpretation of the physiological experience of being embodied, from your interpretation or intellectual naming of those experiences. Um, One of the other things that comes up for me looking at this card is something that I've been reading about. I've been reading Symbols of Transformation by Carl Jung, where he lays out a lot of his basic ideology. Um, hey y'all, I see y'all. Um, the He's talking about in one chapter two kinds of thinking: directed thinking, which is conscious, willful thought, intentionally thinking thoughts along a linear kind of, or as it were, line of thinking. And then we have other kinds of thoughts which possess us, right? The kinds of thoughts where we might have directed thinking. We might be thinking about something in particular, and out of nowhere, here comes this thought that takes possession of our mind and derails our directed thinking. Or we might just be lying down and not thinking of anything in particular, and a series of symbols or pictures or whatever it may be, words enter our mind. And sometimes we just let it go past, like a screen, just let whatever's projected on there go past. Sometimes we might latch on to one of those thoughts and let it carry us. But I think this particular card is talking about the kinds of thoughts that hijack our conscious mind, and that they arise from the subconscious and unconscious. So, of the Nine of Swords at this full moon, we are asking ourselves, what kinds of thoughts that emerge from our unconscious are hijacking our thinking, right? These may not necessarily be false or erroneous. They might be alerting us to something real about our environment. But I think the point of this card is that it's very difficult to tell. It's very difficult to tell when our thoughts are alerting us to a real threat versus when our thoughts are a product of some previous trauma or a projection of past experience onto the present. That was a lot just in one card, and I don't even know what the rest of these cards gonna have to say at this point, but let's see. I'm gonna put all these cards down, and we're gonna flip them over one row at a time. All right, the moon. Oh God, that's just like a perfect card to follow that. Four of Cups, the Empress. Dang, why does the reading starting off all depressing? Goodness gracious here. I will show y'all all the cards at the end, and I'll try to upload. Maybe if I bring this a little bit closer, you might be able to hear me better. Okay, and then I'll upload an image onto Twitter. Let me see what y'all saying. So here we are with the Moon, the Four of Cups, and the Empress. There is a lot of feminine energy here. There is a lot of mother energy here, a lot of mother complex, as Jung would say. And the mother complex is the imprint in our psyche created by our unique and personal experience of mother, informed by a kind of collective, as he would say, archetypal existence of the idea or concept of mother. So when we see the Moon and the Empress here, we know that this is about that which nurtures and births us. I'm thinking less literally about mother, although it could apply. I'm thinking less literally about mother and more kind of symbolically about that which births and gestates, that which gives birth to. So when we looked back at the Nine of Swords, we were talking about our unconscious or subconscious giving birth to thoughts that hijack our mind. So in this sense, we're thinking about that which births, that which gestates, nurtures, in secret or private or hidden, like in the womb. You can't see what's happening in the womb versus what actually emerges, and how these two things can often be in conflict with each other. I think that dichotomy is really important at this full moon and in this reading. The Four of Cups is in the middle. I've been actually thinking about this card. My go-to interpretation of the Four of Cups is someone who is distracted. So it can be because they have something else going on that takes their attention. I've often interpreted the Four of Cups as boredom, loss of passion or interest, so that if you were so excited and emotionally invested in something being a certain way, the Four of Cups represents an emotional change or shift where you are no longer invested. I almost think of something running out of steam, right? Like something like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. Yes, I'm excited. So there's a lot of disillusionment here. And I don't want to overlook the obvious at this full moon, that at a full moon in Scorpio, which occurs once or maybe twice every year, but generally once every year, the sun is in Taurus and the moon is in Scorpio. The moon is not happy in Scorpio. The moon in Scorpio is really saying that mother is not nurturing, family is not nurturing, the home. A lot of times when I see moon in Scorpio and Aries as well, there's this, in a natal chart rather, there's this sense that life did not stop when you were born, that life just kept going, that mom didn't stop to dote. Mom's body wasn't rest, calm, nurture, baby, nurse, tune in, pay attention. That either because she was under threat, right? Or for whatever reason, there's this sense that life did not stop for the native, and that the needs of the native, the person who has moon in Scorpio or Aries, was not, their needs weren't centralized, right? I mean, this is something that I think some of us have a hard time accepting or articulating, that you are entitled to have the world stop to meet your needs when you're born. Absolutely. And anything other than that is a problem. And it's a problem that creates a domino effect of challenges. With that being said, for the majority of us, life didn't stop when we were born. We don't have moon in Cancer, right? We don't have moon in Taurus. We don't have this experience of family being nurturing. Many of us have the experience of family being antagonizing, so that there's a separation, loss, or conflict involved with family, and that your individual survival becomes more important than belonging. And that's really what Moon in Scorpio means. But the catch here is that the sun is in Taurus, and Taurus is the sign of the moon's exaltation. So what that means is that even though the moon is in exile, right? Being in exile means you're kicked out, right? You're gone, you're not accepted, you're not welcome, you don't belong. This is the literal experience of many people with Moon in Scorpio. So I wouldn't counter that. I see that someone says Moon and Venus in Scorpio. I have been a mini adult for a long time. Absolutely. When life does not stop for you, your survival instinct is in your own hands. And someone else says, I have Moon in Aries. My mother moves constantly. I can't make this stuff up, right? But the important thing to understand at this moment is that you are entitled to have the world stop for your needs. And I would question that if you came up in a home where the world did not stop for you, either because mom was working, there was death, illness, there was poverty, frequent moving, being in a military family and frequently moving, or instability in your home, or violence, or whatever it may be. How has that shaped your response to your own body, right? If that threat of constant moving is gone, if that threat of the world not stopping for your needs and you actually having to take your survival instinct into your own hands rather than your family and your home being a proxy for you, right? Being your boundaries, being your safety, right? So that your own survival instinct can develop properly. How has that shaped your present? One other thing that I want to say is that the moon often indicates when our fears are keeping us from seeing clearly. The moon is like walking into a room with the lights off. Even if you've been in the room before, you don't just charge into the room. You might feel your way through, stick your hands out, reach around, look for any glimmer of light so that you can perceive what's in the room. But that feeling your way around is because you just don't know, right? You hear a sound, maybe there's a creature in the room. This is the moon. It's the fear that comes from not knowing and not seeing, right? So next to the Four of Cups, we might say, what kind of fears emerge from us not knowing and not seeing, and how do they distract us from our present? How does our fear sabotage the passion that arises from being faced with the opportunity to meet a need? I'm going to say that again because that was totally channeled and I don't really remember what I said. So I'm going to try. How does the fear of not knowing sabotage your excitement, your joy, and your capacity to take advantage of present opportunities to get your needs met? I hope that made sense. And that's just really saying that what old threats are you responding to as if they're present? I think the important thing to say before I go to this next row of cards is that projection is really important. And and I know that a lot of new age folks always talk about projection as this bad thing. But there's really no other way for us to work out our issues, right? For many of us, we can't go get back in the womb and be reborn. We cannot go back home and relive our childhood and remake ourselves as accepted and loved and safe and wanted. And so we have to work out those issues in our relationships. But the catch is when we are unable to see that we are projecting and have an opportunity to work out our issues, and we take it as if there is something wrong with us or this thing in the moment. That's a really complex thing I'm going to leave alone. But the Empress, right? I was saying that I didn't want to overlook the moon being exalted in Taurus, meaning that the moon receives the sun because the sun is in a sign the moon likes. So if we are focused, sun in Taurus, on our entitlement to be validated, accepted, wanted, belong, willing to adapt and change, our perceptions shaped by our need to be validated, the moon receives that. And so here we have this opportunity to integrate the need for self-preservation, which is unconscious, and the need for validation, to integrate both the surviving and thriving. All right, let me keep going. How long have I been on here? Man, I know I could talk 34 minutes. reading y'all messages. Who y'all are funny. Okay, next row here, 10 of Pentacles. This is like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Look at that fruit on there. We have the Two of Wands and the Seven of Cups. So remember, we are going back to that Nine of Swords. This deck has the Nine of Swords submerged in water, the bottom half of the body. This is a theme that is interesting because last time we did a new moon reading, the Ten of Swords was on the bottom and the bottom half of the body was disconnected from the top half of the body. In this reading, that was at the new moon in Aries, which was also ruled by Mars. Now we're at the full moon in Scorpio. The card on the bottom is the Nine of Swords, and the bottom half of the body is now not being able, we cannot see it. It's submerged in water. So then I asked about how our intentions, our will, right? The bottom half of the body is the part that actually moves the body. So we can translate that into meaning the will, the engine, the intention of the body or of the self. How is it disconnected from our conscious mind? How are our intentions and our actions or thoughts disconnected from each other? This week now with the Nine of Swords submerged, let me show you this again. The Nine of Swords here, half the body submerged in water. And that's interesting too, that the swords are like piercing the hands. There's this kind of sacrificial martyrdom going on, kind of like Jesus on the cross. But having the bottom half of the body, again, the part of the body that actually impels and has the capability to move the body. We're talking about Mars here, which is the ruler of Scorpio, the sign of this full moon. This bottom half of the body is submerged in water. It's stuck in instinct. So this is, to me, saying you are doing something that you're not aware that you're doing. You're taking actions rooted in intentions that you are not aware of. The bottom half of the body submerged in the instinct, the physical capabilities of the body to move, not conscious, not in the mind, not on purpose, but on instinct. This is the definition of the survival instinct, but we can take it to another level and say that the bottom half of the body being submerged in instinct means that we often take actions that defy our capacity to understand. We often do things that are very contrary to what we intend. So that the Nine of Swords, like being revealed here behind the curtain in this card, is saying that we are struggling to interpret why we keep doing things that are contrary to what we're consciously trying to do. And we're trying to interpret our bodies. We're trying to interpret the signals from our body. We are trying to interpret what's happening physiologically. Why does my heart start beating so fast? Why can't I move? Why am I stuck in this bed? Why do I move so fast? Why can't I sit still and be calm? All of these different things. So here we go. We've got the Ten of Pentacles, the Two of Wands, and the Seven of Cups. Ten of Pentacles is about the material and the tangible evidence of being in community, in relationship. What are the external ramifications, consequences, evidence of being in community? What are the material benefits of being in community? What do you gain by pooling your resources? That's the Ten of Pentacles. Tens often have to do with culminations. So for example, with the Ten of Cups, I might say a resolution, right? An emotional resolution of some kind. Hey, Courtney Michelle Wilson. Right, an emotional resolution of some kind. Okay, the words in my head that just popped up are, why does my body defy my mind? That's what I was going to say. Okay, so we've got the Ten of Pentacles, which is also that Ten of Pentacles, which is also, we could say, a material resolution. So some kind of external material evidence of a process being completed. Some of the words that are coming to my mind are like method. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but there we go. All right, we've got the Two of Wands and the Seven of Cups. I want to come to the Seven of Cups because there's just a little bit of a theme here. The Four of Cups and Seven of Cups are not the most, I would say, happy or joyful or positive experiences of cups in the tarot. The Seven of Cups is about ambivalence, and pretty much every Rider Waite Coleman Smith version or copycat of this card, there is these cups that have all of these different things. And for me, this is about ambivalence. Ambivalence is kind of being of a double mind. It is of having mixed feelings about something. Uh, Reed sent me a tweet from Dennis, can't remember his name right now, but he tweets about compassion a lot. Um, and um, this morning's tweet was saying, hold on, I'm gonna read it to you, and then I'm gonna give you this name so you can follow this person. Hold on. Um, okay, it says, how well has it worked for you to believe that every part of you must be 100% on board, with no parts afraid, resistant to change, anxious, or doubtful before taking a step toward the life you truly want? That's the Seven of Cups, man, right? You're looking at the consequences of your choices. You're looking at your mixed feelings. You're looking at feeling excited on one hand, hesitant on one hand, afraid, anxious, right? Again, this thing of your body sending you all of these signals and you're trying to interpret them. But I think that the message of the Nine of Swords is really that you can sit and make a spreadsheet of all the sensations and feelings your body has in response to something, and it really would not help you, right? That there has to be some other motivation for why you're moving in a certain direction or why you're doing what you're doing. And this particular full moon is really alerting us to the fact that there are things that are happening that are outside of our capacity to understand, right? They're rooted in experiences we have consciously forgotten. They're rooted in experiences we have interpreted one way. And now it's kind of like, okay, if you can set aside your inability to resolve the emotional complexity of your present circumstances, could you still move forward? The Seven of Cups and that ambivalence often hints or implies that we have not truly addressed our fears. We have not truly articulated and said, these are the things that I'm really afraid of. These are the things that make me hesitant. If we can take this opportunity, Two of Wands, um, to acknowledge our fears, to give them a name, to verbalize them. When you give something language, we straddle this thing of, am I giving this thing power or am I stripping it of its power? I think that when we give things language, we give it power. It does us no use to hold feelings, thoughts, or things in our mind, refusing to acknowledge them and refusing to give them language. As long as things have no language, they control you against your will. That, I said this before, that which you name cannot shame you. That which you name cannot control you. That which you give voice to cannot use you like a puppet, right? You can't be its ventriloquist. So this second row of cards, Ten of Pentacles, Two of Wands, Seven of Cups, is asking us, I almost feel like, man, weird imagery is popping in my head. A sealed and closed trunk, the contents of which are our experiences. This is what's coming up for me for the Ten of Pentacles. A sealed trunk, a closed trunk that's full, the contents of which is our experiences up until this point. It's almost like baggage, right? Luggage that you carry around with you. And luggage that you have can determine where you go depending on whether or not your flight lets you check bags. This is so weird. But I think the symbolism of that is saying that, you know, in the Ten of Pentacles, what's done is done, right? We have this legacy that we have inherited through experience genetically or things that have literally been given to us in a physical sense, like illness or wealth, poverty, property, um, unresolved generational trauma. There is something to be said here about the contents of this sealed trunk and how you've been dragging it behind you, never really stopping to see what's inside and if you need it. There's an opportunity here to unpack the contents of this sealed trunk, and there's no reason to be afraid of it. Look inside, organize it, name things, throw some stuff away. Say, I like this. Say, this can be repaired. Say, this is beyond repair. Say, oh man, I could really use this. I don't know. All right. That was like super, super visual for me. Okay. We've got here the Six of Pentacles, another Pentacle, the Hermit card, and Death. There is a bit of a theme emerging here around, well, obviously because of the full moon in Scorpio, it's just what I described it as. There's a theme here emerging around the self, you as an individual body and person versus relationship, community, belonging, and sharing. Um, the Empress here back in the top row is kind of hovering over this. It's kind of um, looming over this reading. Uh, the Empress is mother. It is women who have influence and authority. When we talk about the mother complex, it's not necessarily our literal mother and who she is, etc. It is our own personal imprint of our experience of mother and what are the thoughts and feelings that come up. Modern psychology, development of personality places great importance on the home, the family, the upbringing as a defining and shaping factor of our present experiences. And so that mother might represent the literal person that gave birth to you, but again, that which gestates and nurtures, that which gives birth to you. So thinking back to the circumstances that have given birth to you, are you seeing them clearly? Are you afraid to examine the contents of your experience in order to figure out if you really need to carry it forward with you? I feel like I'm all over the place, but I think that it'll make sense to those who it needs to make sense to. All right, we've got the Six of Pentacles in the bottom row, Hermit, and Death. It's important here, I think, that the Six of Pentacles comes under the Ten of Pentacles and also under the Moon. That's like the first column. So there is some fear of not having enough, fear of asking for help, fear of sharing. The Six of Pentacles is a couple of things: getting what one deserves, like if I owe you, you owe me, give me what's mine. The Six of Pentacles is sharing and asking for help. Six of Pentacles is about debt, being in someone's debt or someone being in your debt. This particular card, the words that come to mind are balancing a debt. It's taking me back to that Ten of Pentacles card and this idea of generational trauma. Ooh, give back to the person that which does not belong to you. Woo! That was loud. Who is that for? Who is that for? Give back to the person that which does not. You have to be willing to go through the trunk. You can't just keep lugging this thing around, carrying it with you like, oh, this is so heavy, I can't get to where I want because it's so, you don't even know what's inside of it. Carrying stuff that not only doesn't belong to you, but that you probably don't need. The Six of Pentacles says, give back that which does not belong to you. Did you know that you can say no to inheriting other people's stuff? You can give it back. You don't have to own it. It's not yours. I love it when it be so loud in my ear like that. I'll be like, thank you. All right. Hermit is the next card. Hermit, 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 solitude, alone, solitary, by yourself, by your lonesome, but also seeking. He has reached the edge of the cliff here. Where else can he go? He gonna fall off into the water? Seeking and searching. What have you been looking for? What have you been looking for? The hermit often speaks of a dissatisfaction, having not found what you're looking for, not necessarily knowing what you're looking for, but knowing you didn't find it. It's a sense of knowing, aha, that comes. Yes, yes, that's it. This is what I've been looking for, even if you couldn't give word to it before. When you see it, you know it. So the hermit is this searching and seeking. Hermit's always holding a light here. You see his little lamp there. I don't know if you can see it. He's got a little lamp there, and in this particular deck, that light is like illuminating the whole sky. It's almost like it's the sun. Light is always consciousness, right? Always what is present in your awareness. Remember how I described consciousness earlier, that conscious is the thing, the singular thing that we are capable of focusing on with our conscious mind and intention, to the neglect or at the expense of a whole bunch of other stuff that we're not focusing on, right? I'm focusing on this reading, but there's outside, there's plants in this room, there's all kind of stuff going on in this house, but I'm focused right here. So everything else is in recessing further and further layers of conscious awareness, so that I could close my eyes and tune into what's going on downstairs or in the next room. But what's outside, right? I can't know that for sure unless I go look and put my focus on it. So the hermit talks about, where is the focus of your conscious awareness at present? Somebody said, Digital Spice Box said, first card moon, last card death, the moon in Scorpio, literally. Yes. So next to the Six of Pentacles, this idea of taking ownership of what belongs to you and giving back that which is not yours. Now, this could be literal possessions, but I'm thinking more in terms of trauma, emotional baggage, generational trauma, generational sin, right? That which keeps us separate from each other. That's what generational sin is. Generational sin is that which keeps us separate from thriving relationship and community, right? That which says you don't need them, you don't need anybody, you don't care what anybody thinks. They'll never accept you anyway. They rejected you, they'll reject you again. They abandoned you again. That person will too, and that person will too. So it's no use in even trying. That's what sin is, right? Sin is the narratives that keep us from connecting, keep us from thriving. Thriving comes from a state of peace where the needs of your body are being met or are acknowledged. Survival is being in a state where there is immediate threat, or your body believes that there is immediate threat to your person. It's a hypervigilance that is unsustainable. Thriving is a state of peace that comes when our body is not triggered or programmed into believing that there is imminent threat. Thriving comes through community. So some of the words that are coming through my mind is, put on your own oxygen mask first. Save your own life first. Give back that which does not belong to you. Finally, we have death here. This is a really great card to have in this reading, in this position. Death is an irrefutable and irrevocable ending. Unless you Lazarus, you ain't coming back, boo. Right? So death is the permanence of ending. Death is the death is the inevitable end of all things. I'm thinking about some of the words close the door in the chapter. If I go back to the Nine of Swords here and kind of just let Spirit talk through me looking at these cards, we have the Nine of Swords, which again I've talked about the unconscious instinct, the survival instinct that one, its function is to keep us alive, but when it's in overdrive, it keeps us from acting in accordance with our conscious intentions, right? So the Nine of Swords asks, what unconscious ways does our body sabotage our capacity to move and act with conscious intention? All of the swords floating above the person's head in the Nine of Swords cards, all of these thoughts that hijack, right? If you have this repeating feeling in your body that comes up in certain circumstances and your mind scrambles to interpret it, right? It's hard to know the origin of those feelings. It's hard to be able to say, that's the first time I ever felt this feeling. It's associated with this particular experience. Sometimes we can talk ourselves out of responding to a threat that's not present. Other times we can't access it from our conscious mind. We need to work through our body. The Moon, Four of Cups, Empress, Ten of Pentacles, Two of Wands, Seven of Cups, Six of Pentacles, Hermit, Death. Fear that distracts us from tapping into opportunities to get our needs met at present. What experiences from your upbringing distract you and make you fearful at present? What early experiences have shaped your survival instinct, and even though you're not aware of it, are hijacking your capacity to act with conscious intention? What narratives do you keep replaying out from your childhood, from your relationship with your father, your mother, your home? What are the contents of the psychological and emotional luggage that you've been carrying around? Have you examined them? Now is the opportunity for you to move forward in spite of the mixed feelings and the ambivalence that you feel. Even though you might be afraid, say it, I am afraid, and then set it aside. The fear can exist while you're moving forward. I am anxious, I am nervous, I don't believe I can do it. Put it all over here on the side. You can move forward with it over here. What things are you carrying around with you that are not yours? You can give them back. Someone treats you a certain way because of their own trauma, give it back. Someone neglects and abandons you because they were neglected and abandoned, give it back. Giving it back means stop making excuses for people and do not protect them from the consequences of their choices and behavior. You can have compassion and understand the experiences that have allowed a certain person or that have shaped a certain person's treatment of you, but do not protect them from the consequences of their behavior toward you at the expense of your own life, body, and well-being. I'm getting kind of a mixed feeling about the Hermit next to the Death. On one hand, I'm like, okay, you can stop looking now. It's okay. You can stop looking now. You can stop searching. But then on the other hand, I'm thinking of a search that comes to an inevitable end. I almost feel like I need to draw a couple more cards on the other side of Death just to see what's there. We get the Five of Pentacles and Hierophant. Hierophant definitely has like a Taurus Jupiter feel for me, because it's talking about institutions. These two cards really actually go together really well. So on the one hand, I see these cards saying that this is an end a completion and irrevocable end to you asking for things from institutions, people that don't have it to give to you. But at the same time, I'm thinking about ways in which we can finally embrace our need to be validated and accepted, and allowing that to shape the institutions of family, religion, community, culture. There's a lot in this reading about putting that need to be validated in the right place and finding balance between saving our own lives, survival, and being a part of community, sharing and thriving, and being able to identify that which is really yours. And that what is your self narrative? What is your narrative about what is possible for you look like when you relinquish possession of things that don't belong to you? I don't really think I got anything else to say. That was kind of intense. These readings be so intense, and yeah, I don't even really know what to say about that. This reading will be up on YouTube, and um, I'm still working on this lunar return workbook, so I'm gonna post a blog post soon showing you how to cast your lunar return chart and what the lunar return chart is for. But the workbook will contain detailed instructions and an example using the chart of Queen Victoria of England, to help you use lunar return charts. Uh, I'm really excited. It's one of the primary tools I use in my personal astrology day to day practice, and I'm excited to share it with y'all. But give me a minute. I was hoping to get it done before I went to New Orleans last week, but that didn't happen. And now I'm like neck deep in these eclipse readings. So there's that. I do hope to offer a tarot eclipse special. I haven't done that in a couple of years. Maybe I did it last year. I don't remember. But to offer a special tarot offer a special tarot rate. Janelle Julian, this reading was intense but necessary. These cards felt me and I heard them. Thank you so much, Janelle. Yeah, it was really, really, really intense. Um, I want to reiterate, just to go back to the reading real quick, that this death card I think is really important. And I don't want you to think of death as something to be fearful. I want you to think of death as the inevitable end of all living things. Um, yeah. Someone asks, is June good for money for Pisces? I can't really make that kind of um, interpretation or delineation without seeing the entire natal chart. There's no blanket statement for one sign, unfortunately. I suggest you book the forecasting and predictions reading if you want a specific look at your birth chart. With that being said, I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna eat me some lunch. I'm gonna let this thing upload and not forget to actually take a picture of the cards so I can put it up on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Happy full moon. The full moon is on Saturday, 3 degrees Scorpio. Go back to the beginning of this video so you can catch all of that juicy, juicy, juicy astrology that I laid out. I will tweet about it. Until next time, my friends.